In a recent interview with GameBeat, Bethesda representative Pete Hines made a statement regarding the future of the studio's games on Nintendo Switch. When questioned about the announcement of Doom and Wolfenstein on Switch, Hines responded that Bethesda is obviously excited about these two games, but it's not as if we're going to just do these two games and that's it. We want this to be the start of a relationship that we build with Nintendo and Nintendo fans. Bethesda's created two of the greatest action RPG series of all time in the Fallout and Elder Scrolls series, of course, and as a fan of this genre, it makes me really excited to see that this studio might be deciding to make developing for the Switch one of their top priorities. We're getting Skyrim on Switch next month, and a Fallout port would be equally as cool, but this news got me thinking about what other similar titles might be a good fit for the Switch. Action RPG games comprise a large portion of the list of the best games of all time, so there are a lot of choices here, but I've narrowed down my top 5 picks for great action RPG titles that could be on Nintendo Switch. Number 5, Diablo III. Because there's a Diablo 3 poster hanging up behind me, I'm just gonna get this one out of the way quickly. Diablo was the RPG pioneer of the West in the mid-90s, and Blizzard cemented themselves as the modern kings of this gameplay when they released Diablo 3 in 2012. Diablo is known for its seamless combat system, engaging plot, and most of all, the endlessly deep skill and loot system. It's no surprise that the creators of World of Warcraft know how to put together a great loot system, but they really perfected this in D3, and people are still playing a few years later, even though the game's story can be completed within a few weeks. In 2015, Blizzard put out the Ultimate Evil Edition, which included an expansion pack as well as all the DLC. This also brought the game back over to PS4 and also Xbox One, so we know that Blizzard is willing to work with the consoles. There are quite a few good clones of this game that are probably more likely to come to Switch, for example, something like Torchlight 2. Torchlight is a great series, but it really pales in comparison to just about every aspect of the top-down RPG genre that Diablo 3 set. The only way I will ever be happy in life is if my two favorite game publishers came together as one. I mean, just imagine all the legendary titles put out by Blizzard being able to be taken with you on an airplane. There's really no evidence that this could ever be a thing, but that doesn't stop me from dreaming. Number 4, Borderlands 2. Borderlands was probably the first shooter-style RPG I ever played, really, and I think people forget just how influential this game has turned out to be. This game dropped before Destiny and all the new Call of Duty games, and was really the first shooter I can think of that also included ability powers that didn't just power up your gun or give you a temporary shield. There was a whole class system here with a huge open world and tons of loot and skills to upgrade. Although it's basically a ripped-off version of a Blizzard-style loot system, it's really second to none for shooting games, maybe only to Destiny. There was also a pretty interesting story here with some pretty memorable characters. If I were to come up with a list of 10 video game characters I can name off the top of my head that aren't Nintendo characters, Claptrap would probably be one of the first ones. This game is also what made me fall in love with cel-shaded graphics. I had played a couple games based on anime before, but I had never seen such a vast world made in this cel-shaded style. It's one of the most distinct styles of graphics in any shooting game to ever be released, and has probably influenced the recent influx of games with this style more than anyone likes to admit. The game was ported over to 8th generation consoles in 2015 with all the DLC included, and if we're getting a game like Payday 2 on Switch, I'm sure it would be within the realm of possibility to get Borderlands 2. Number 3, Dark Souls 3. Sometimes, games can show us that the easy route isn't necessarily the best route. It might be easy initially, but when things get hard, it feels a lot more rewarding when you get past that hard place. The Dark Souls series is a living testament to this ethos. Dark Souls is a game that has never really focused on story, only on perfecting the art of precise, well thought out combat. I can almost guarantee that you will die at least 5 times on every boss in this game, and even before the bosses. As I'm making this video, I can literally picture every twist and turn of the game's first level because it really makes you go back and do things in an exact way, sometimes hundreds of times. Every hit you take counts, so you have to pay full attention to every move you make. Dark Souls' loot and skill system isn't as comprehensive as anything I've talked about previously on this list, but it's still perfect for what the game needs. because it's so difficult, it takes a lot of small practice sessions to get better at certain parts of the game, so the on-the-go nature of the Switch would really match this idea perfectly. I've played Bloodborne and I loved that game as well, but I think Dark Souls 3 really took all the best elements of these From Software games and made it into the ultimate hardcore action RPG experience. Number 2, BioShock Infinite. So Dark Souls and the next game that I'm about to talk about aren't just two games I think should be on Switch, but they're also two of my favorite games of all time. BioShock Infinite isn't just a game, it's actually more of a visual novel. They absolutely nailed the combat system with the vending machines scattered throughout your playthrough, the unique and finely tuned abilities, and even just the general combat feels very fluid and satisfying. But what most people remember about this game is the amazing presentation and story. Booker DeWitt is your seemingly average macho protagonist who saves a girl from a tower and tries to keep her out of trouble, which sounds sort of generic, but there's so much in between here, as well as a huge twist towards the end of the story that really makes this game better than most movies I've watched or even books I've read. It's set in this colonial American steampunk city in the clouds that seems innocent at first, but quickly becomes more cult-like than holy. This is one of the only mainstream games ever to explore civil themes like racial tension, religion, and just the corruption of power overall. I try to replay this at least once a year, and each time it ends, I'm still impacted by the story. I know that a lot of people love the first two BioShock games, but I think Infinite is in a league of its own and would be a great FPS for the Nintendo Switch. Number 1, NieR Automata. The NieR series was rarely brought up in conversations like these until the release of Automata this year. This game is mostly similar to Dark Souls if I had to relate it to any other game on this list, with a similar third-person camera angle and mostly just involving slicing enemies up with your sword. The precise combat system where you really have to think about literally every single move isn't as meticulous as anything you'd see in the Souls series, but the combat and skill systems still feel refined and exciting. Where NieR really shines though is through its presentation and story. This post-apocalyptic world overrun by robots and aliens has this gray theme that seems sort of boring at first, but the game starts to sprinkle in colors in random places to make you intrigued by the idea and kind of make you want to follow it. The gray world with lightly mixed in colors really flows with the whole idea of the game, that you're this android character in a world with no emotion, but you're still slightly influenced by your human side and wonder about your humanity and the unknown. It's a really great story, and just like BioShock Infinite, would really work great with just the story alone. This game was developed by Platinum Games and published by Square Enix, who both have significant ties to Nintendo. I actually prefer the art and theme of this game over Dark Souls, and although the 1080p 60 FPS graphics might make it hard to make a direct port of this title on Switch, I think that maybe a new IP developed by the same team with the same gameplay idea would be awesome. Platinum Games is well known for their Bayonetta IP and have actually teased pretty recently that they're working on a game for Switch, so maybe this could be what I'm looking for. I haven't played a Bayonetta game before, but I have a basic understanding of what they entail. If Bayonetta 3 had a bigger focus on precise attacks and less Dynasty Warriors style hack and slash action, and maybe some more options for skill and gear customization, I think it really could be a monumental action RPG and just another reason for everyone ever to own a Switch. While The Legend of Zelda will always be one of the great pioneers of the genre, action RPGs have been sort of underrepresented on Nintendo consoles. I don't fully condone the crazy amount of ports being brought over to the Switch, but I do think that bringing some of these legendary older titles over to test the waters could really open up Pandora's box and make the demand for this genre higher among Nintendo fans. Let me know your action RPG on Switch pipe dreams down in the comments, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel for the latest Switch content available. This is Max from Max Culture, and thank you so much for watching.